Good afternoon, good evening, or perhaps good morning. No matter what time it is, wherever you are in the world, whenever this video has found you. Welcome and thanks for joining us on the Tongal live stream. My name is Marissa Nystrom. I am part of the community team here at Tongal, where we are on a mission to bring the world's creative work to the world's creative talent. Right now, you can get to work on a number of briefs for clients like the USA Network and Sapporo. And I also have it on very good authority that a couple big animation projects are going to be dropping later this week. So stay tuned to our open projects page if you're looking for your next creative project. But first, today I am happy to introduce Christine McKenna-Tirella, who is a casting specialist with Backstage, only the most trusted name in casting since 1960. Welcome, Christine.
Hi, Marissa. Thanks for having me.
It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, Christine is here to answer all of your questions about casting. And especially, we're talking about remote casting, which has been rapidly and widely adopted under the new normal of COVID. And we're looking at this really from an independent creator, filmmaker, producer point of view, since the Tongal community is comprised of creators on that side of production. But also, if you have questions from the talent side, please feel free to let us hear those as well. But before we dive into all of that, we've got to give a big hello to the creators tuning in live. Hello, everybody out there on YouTube and Facebook. How's it going? We'd love to get a dialogue going with all of you. So give us a shout, let us know what's on your mind, and say hello in the comments, or let Christine know if you have any questions along the way. We'll be checking that chat throughout the program, and we'll get to as many of your questions as we possibly can in the hour. And I'd be remiss if I didn't remind everyone that through our partnership with Backstage, all Tongal creators receive free casting services on the Backstage platform. So if you're looking to cast voiceover or on-screen talent for any project, you should absolutely start with Backstage. You can take advantage of this and other partner offers via the resources section on the For Community dropdown on Tongal, which you can see on that lovely lower third. And it's also linked, I think, on the YouTube video for your extra convenience if you're viewing there. All right, Christine, are you ready to talk about casting?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Excited to chat.
Awesome. So I got to look a little bit at your past works, and it sounds like you've done a little bit of everything in different kinds of projects. Can you tell us a little bit how you got into the casting side of production?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I have a varied resume. I'm super proud of the different types of projects that I've been able to work on in the last kind of 9-10 years of my casting career. As a lot of casting directors do, I started on the other side of the casting table. So I was an actor for a few years. I had some really great years when I got out of drama school when I first moved to New York from Northern Ireland, where I'm from. Eventually, the non-linear style of working kind of got me down a little bit, and I find myself more and more drawn to the other side, and to casting in particular. I was always the person that suggested audition material for friends, and we're sending other casting notices to other actors, and I just didn't know that was a job until I was really kind of submerged in the business, and I was like, oh, this is for me. This is what gets me excited. That, you know, supporting other actors and getting them opportunities really makes me want to come to work every day. So I started my career at Palladino Casting, which was commercial and a bit of reality television, and actually real people casting way back when people weren't really doing that yet.
Hey, back when they were really real.
yeah, really, you know, so, and then I moved into theater casting for a little bit, and I worked with Harriet Bass for 3 years. And then I was really lucky to work with Chelsea for a short period for a pilot season that I was hired for in their commercial department. And then I moved to Stuart Whitley, which is a theater and TV casting company in New York. And then I got this amazing opportunity to work with Backstage, and I moved over there.
Amazing. Yeah. So, and you've been with Backstage about a year or so. How has that been? How has that grown for your you know, the stuff that you're working on even more, your ability to continue to deepen your casting knowledge.
Yeah. So what attracted me to Backstage was actually this new wave of technology. Of course, I couldn't know that we would be here at this moment talking about virtual auditions and the amount of remote opportunities. But from being in the casting room for so many years, I started really gravitating towards, well, what's kind of next in our business, right? I feel like it would almost be irresponsible not to be trying to figure out what the next trend is going to be. And I was really intrigued and interested in what Backstage was developing behind the scenes, which now we have a lot of the product out there. I'm excited to talk about it today. But I'm primarily a casting specialist at Backstage. So we act as ambassadors to the brand. We talk to filmmakers and students, creators and production companies. And it's a two-way conversation, right? So, here's Backstage, here's what we have to offer you. What are you doing? What are you looking for? How can we help you, right? We have two kind of two community streams that we serve. So we've got the creators and the actors, and mutually we're trying to connect them and develop the software and the ways in which the community can grow.
Absolutely. That sounds familiar. At Tongal, we are also used to talking to two different sides of the coin of production, from talent behind the scenes production, and then also our clients to get the great work that we create on the platform. So totally understand that. As you mentioned, Backstage has really significantly expanded its support and product offering around remote casting, and just in these last couple months. I know it's been in the works for a while now, but can you tell me a little bit about those developments? And I think we have a slide too.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. So really simply, so we had just before COVID struck, we had launched our scheduling tools, which was new for Backstage, which was intended to be for in-person scheduling. And that was managing, so you could go to Backstage as your only resource. You could find the talent that you needed from A to Z, right? So we would be able to manage and schedule and audition them right from the site. February, March happened. And we pivoted. So we already had a lot of that tech in place. And the next part of putting that in place was the virtual auditions. So we have our own video conferencing software. So it's essentially setting up the entire audition process, but housing it on Backstage. So again, all internal, everything is there, headshot, resume, the talent comes right to you. Very similar to what we're doing right now, which, you and I are having a conversation. This is exactly how it appears for the actor and the creator. So that's we have the scheduling tools for virtual auditions and in-person auditions for once upon a time, hopefully in the future, when we get back into audition rooms together. We also started really developing something called select lists. So especially for those budget and time conscious projects, being able to get submissions for a project, select the talent that you like, and then send that in a list to your clients. Essentially the old school picture pool, right? I don't know if that's something that's familiar to your audience, kind of on a commercial level and an industrial level. So you can tag the talent that you like and send that in a link, which is really helpful. Of course, we've had self-tapes for a while now, but we've developed and really kind of sharpened those a little bit more for the creator in particular. And you can now get an initial self-tape and a callback self-tape, which is super handy. Sometimes you get that material in and you need to speak to the actor. You love them, but they need to present it in a different way before it can go to your producer or director. We're giving you that opportunity. And then the collaborators tool, I think, is one of the most underutilized things on our site. And it's kind of exciting. So if you have a large creative team and you want to include them on the casting process, so you have, you have two producers and a director who's very hands-on, and maybe your production assistant is your casting kind of point person for your project, or however you're doing it, you guys can all share the project together so that you can be invited to the virtual audition. You can have multiple people in that audition. You can kind of oversee the project. So the collaborators tool is a really cool thing that we've added. And I just added my email to the bottom there. And of course, our promo, which we'll talk about that in a little. We've already spoken about it. And
there it is.
Sorry. Yes, anyone has any questions, I would love to run through this with anyone that has a project that they'd love to know more about this stuff. So, but those are the basics. And I'm really excited about the virtual audition tool. You know, we've really just gone live in the last 2 or 3 months on it. We've just keep on getting feedback and building on what we have. And then something that I didn't put here, but you mentioned it, and is a really great point about where the trend of projects are going at the moment. We had launched an alternate profile for actors for voiceover only, so that you can have your actor profile and your voiceover profile on the one site. But of course, voiceover profiles are so different in their characteristics, what you need to be able to show a producer. So we have that, we have that ability on the site, and we have a lot of really great voiceover articles and in general, the tools there for someone that is particularly looking for a voiceover artist.
Wow, that's awesome that you guys are offering that now. And really in the last couple of months to see, you know, all these new changes and where you're going to go next. It's really a good, exciting time, I think, over at Backstage. So back to our faces. I know you spoke about the trend of voiceover work being a big thing. Are there any other trends that you're noticing, or is that kind of the big one you're seeing?
Certainly, you know, I smiled when you said animation. We're seeing so much more animation than we did before, which of course is primarily voiceover work. When everything was truly shut down in the most traditional way at the start of this shelter in place for New York, where I am anyway, we saw a lot of production companies and branding agencies using B-roll and then placing new voiceover on top of that as kind of a trend. So they weren't so much looking to new talent and shooting new things. They were going into their archives and seeing what could be repurposed. Similarly, we're seeing a lot of user-generated content. So anything that can be done at home, as remote as possible, like testimonial style commercials in particular. For actors, that means you have to have the tech in place to kind of be able to professionally shoot yourself. And for creators, you need to be prepared to direct someone virtually, right? Which is we're in a strange world. Wow. It's a different skill set. So it's something to kind of have to think about. Casting projects that have open start dates, but still seeking talent, because obviously some of these projects, if they're union, haven't got green lights yet.
Right.
And on the other half of that is a lot more non-union projects. So the unions are being understandably hesitant about allowing projects to go forward until there's better procedure and protections in place. And so we're seeing more non-union commercial TV and film, which is huge.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. You know, on our side too, we're seeing a lot of the same sort of trends on probably a smaller scale, just obviously because we have a small window into what our clients are doing, but it is a lot of UGC. We're seeing repurposing content that you already have with editing, a lot more editing projects on Tongal, as well as very small live action production. One of the ways that we're thinking about it is, you know, a lot of filmmakers live with other people who are also in the industry or do talent, or like are you know, are an actor or a just cool person that can be on camera, or your family is photogenic. So now you're going to be in a family spot. So just trying to think of like these very, you know, smart ways that you can really get around and still work within the confines and still be safe and keep everyone working. So that makes sense. And I really liked how you touched on the technology of it all. I know for everyone right now, it just feels like we're all in this crash course for technology, but especially, you know, if you are like a director or the talent, like doing these self-taste, these remote castings, it's a different way of thinking about it, I'm sure, for a lot of folks. Or, you know, I assume some people are going to get lost in that shuffle if they can't keep up with it, because it is a whole new world for all of us.
I think that it's certainly essential right now in this moment to start mastering kind of this at-home way of working and this virtual way of being creative, which can be challenging, but I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think that one of the takeaways from this time, and there are more, of course, but one of them is going to be smaller budgets and a hesitancy to get back into an audition room. And so I think that self-tapes and virtual remote auditions and voiceover work, I think it's all here to stay.
Yeah, totally. I think so too. It's only accelerated
right
where we've gotten to. So we did get some questions ahead of the broadcast. So I wanted to kind of jump to one of those. Where was it going to go with that? Yes, there was a question from Suzanne, which is, I think is just really dovetails into that remote casting experience is what should people expect, I think is kind of at the heart of this of like, what tech do I need? How are people doing this? What approaches? It sounds like, on Backstage, you guys are giving people the tools to kind of help do that, but there are probably multiple approaches to it. So what formats have you seen for these remote castings? Are they predominantly self-taped and then people are doing, choosing from there, or are they doing a lot more live castings as well?
Yeah, so I recommend, if you have the luxury of time, pre-screening talent with a self-tape makes sense, right? So if you can build that into the budget of your production, do it, because at this point, a lot of people are scattered around the nation, sheltering in place, and there are a lot of talent in different places that you wouldn't expect. So getting a tape is a really great start to figure out just the first gauge, the first moment of, is this person right for my project? Am I interested in pursuing their talent any further? And then with our, in regards to this reader question that I kind of see Suzanne was asking about dialogue from the reader being pre-recorded, you can invite a reader as a collaborator on our project. So you can have a reader in your virtual audition room. So that would just be an extra person in our chat right now, for example. Again, it's so similar how you'd be looking at this, but video conferencing is all kind of very similar. Mm-hmm. So you can have the reader in the room. I wouldn't recommend pre-taping a reader. It's just, I foresee issues with actors not staying on track, right? You have to kind of predict how long they're going to take to say a sentence, or I see that getting off track really fast unless the reader is an intro. There's some kind of footer to the start of a monologue or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I think that a live reader is always best. If you have, we're talking about those family members that might be camera ready now and they never knew it before, right? I've seen a lot of that, like, have to be true roommates and all that type of projects. They're really popular right now. They may not be actors first. And so you have to, I'm always telling actors, put on your director hat, direct your friend through the scene, and just do the best you can with what you've got. That's what you've got to do in this virtual setting, So maybe dad isn't an actor and isn't inclined to intonate and tone his work, but maybe if you could just highlight a few things and give him a few ideas, you'll find out that dad's a little more talented than you think in that department.
Yeah, and for anyone at home that has gotten their parents to do a TikTok dance during all of this, they have also realized that dads can be a little more talented than maybe they assumed previously.
More rhythm than assumed.
All right. Well, thank you, Suzanne, for that question. And then let's see. So just to kind of pivot to the nuts and bolts of casting, even if you're not casting remotely, or just if we're looking at the kinds of projects that you're casting. So say you're casting a commercial versus casting a short film. Does the approach to how a director or a producer or casting director, does the approach change depending on the type of project in your experience?
Yeah, so there are constants, and there's a basic workflow, and I can chat through that. But the slightly different variants are budget, timing, and type of talent you're searching for. So basic workflow for a breakdown would be, you receive the breakdown from your producer director, you get approval for language, rate, usage, so that, everything everything that goes live, everything that could potentially be tweeted or on social media later is exactly correct. You get the sides and all the audition materials you need for the process, and then you're ready to release the breakdown. So you would use Backstage, or you would put a one sheet out there, and a one sheet is the information of a breakdown. Select the best of those submissions that come in. Either you pre-screen them if you have time, or you go straight to creative auditions, which means, with your producer, your creator, your director. And, casting, although there's a lot of, it's very creative and there's a lot of intuition, and there, you work with actors a lot. Truly, it's 80% administrative, right? So you need to schedule and manage those auditions. You need to be on top of everything. Hopefully you have some elegant software, something like Backstage, where you're able to kind of present it in such a nice way, like we're doing the hard work for you. But you've got to book the talent with booking sheets, and there's more admin there. So anyone that starts a career in casting, I'm always telling them, you will be sitting at a desk and a laptop many more hours than you think in your head, like the glamorous idea of always being in an audition room working with an actor. And so it's timing, budget, and type of talent. So commercials, your turnaround is a day or a few days. Film, TV, theater, you have weeks to months of a casting process. You've got a lot more time. There's a luxury in that, apart from, of course, pilot season, where everything moves fast and scripts are changing constantly.
Yeah.
Budget, you get the best talent. You want to find the best talent that fits the budget that you have, and you might have a limited budget, so that might take a little more time to find talent that wants to work for whatever project, whatever budget you particularly have for your project. And then type of talent. So Backstage is the biggest database of talent in the world, right? We have a large database, of course, in America. Then we have Canada, Australia, and the UK markets, which we also represent really well. So hopefully you can put your project onto Backstage and find everything you need. But if you're looking for a gymnast that is fluent in Arabic, or or skateboarders who also can stand on their head while, I don't know, insert silly kind of wonderful specialty talent, that might just take a little longer to overturn the stones and really find what you need. So you need to build in the time for your type of talent too. If there's something a little unusual, you need to kind of think about strategizing about putting the breakdown out there, making it as visible as possible, and then maybe going on social media and sharing it with groups that are skateboarders or aerialists or whatever silly examples I just came up with. You have to sometimes you've got to find the talent, and that takes a little while longer.
Totally makes sense. Yeah. I will remember that the next time I need an Arabic speaking gymnast.
That's it.
And then, I'm not somebody that works in this line of business. I am just watching from the sidelines. So I'm curious to know from your point of view, what are you looking for? Is there anything specific that you're looking for when you are assessing talent from that producer, casting director point of view? Or is it kind of an intangible, or are there like checklists that a creator should be like kind of thinking about as they assess talent?
Yeah, I think there is always a certain amount of intangible, right? Because ultimately, acting ability is so subjective, right? What you and I might look at something and see an entirely different product, right? When we're watching a scene in a movie or a TV or in the theater. And so from that point, hopefully a casting director and a creator like you, we have, our tastes are similar. Our ideas, or parallel, right? So it starts with a creative team that have a cohesive idea of what they're looking for, certainly. And from kind of that, are they subjectively talented? Does the actor strike the right notes and kind of have the right ideas about what you're looking for? And then mostly I find that directors, and this is so true, it's just chemistry. Do you speak the same language? Like when you're in the room creatively working, rehearsals are hours and hours of being in a room with someone, or now maybe being on a Zoom with someone, and giving them ideas and seeing their sense of play with that and their flexibility as an actor, and whether or not like you guys connect in that kind of very creative, intangible way, right? So I often just find that directors in the room are most successful when they just kind of check out if they like the person, right?
Yeah.
If the person, you want to work with them for a duration of a project. Huge thing to keep in mind. Sometimes the most talented actors, they might have the best read in your audition process, but they're not as willing to change the ideas that they have about the character, or really work with you with the things that you want to do. So you have to just really feel out the chemistry.
Yeah, I mean, that completely makes sense, because it's like any job, you're like assessing, will we work together well, and are we going to be on the same page and understand, or do we approach this material kind of from the same headspace? And so that totally makes sense. So this kind of like dovetails into a question that we just got from Eric here. Any tips on how to properly judge or evaluate actors effectively via a screen share, again, in this virtual space? Again, then maybe this is kind of speaking to how is that approach maybe different for assessing that talent virtually versus in person? Are there things you should look for that you wouldn't as when you're in person?
Yeah, no, it is a great consideration, because again, I think a lot of the casting room is an intuitive feeling, right? Like, energy is important. I think that, don't underestimate the amount of energy that someone is giving off virtually, right? I think we all actually give off a lot more energy this way than we know we do. And the more comfortable and the more we do this, the more we're going to become more fluent in this kind of audition environment. Mm-hmm. What's fascinating, especially for a smaller project like a film or UCG kind of project, is that you have the opportunity to set them up, the actor up as closely to the shot that you'd actually like to get as possible in the audition process. And I think that that's an opportunity for you as the creator to really put yourself there with the actor. So, when you're sending out the information of the audition, if there is a certain way you want that actor to be, sitting on a sofa, standing at the kitchen, like put yourself into the scene as much as possible. I think that that's going to really be very helpful. And it's an opportunity that you don't get when you're sitting in an audition space. And I think that that's another reason why you do an audition, an initial audition, you do a callback. Maybe you've got that self-tape before, just try to work with the actor as much as you can.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice to really, because the environment has completely changed. People are, you probably even do a lot more in certain circumstances that you couldn't do in a room, like have costume or different setups, if that's your preference as a director to see, or a producer to see that. So I think taking advantage of that is kind of a boon as well at this point. And then we have another question from Natalia, who asks, how can we judge the chemistry between two actors virtually when they can't be in the same room?
Yeah, that's a hard one, and we haven't solved that yet. So it's interesting you asked that question. No other software has this either. We currently can't have a chemistry read in a traditional way, which of course in a traditional audition room is you guys, you bring in both actors at the same time. We currently can't do it on our Backstage platform. We have the feedback, and I agree, it's something that we really should be trying to work on. I would suggest moving to Zoom, where you could have a chemistry read with an actor. You know, you can have them side by side. It's the best we can do right now. Ultimately, having them do a chemistry read before you've booked them, and if there was a world in which they could be in the same room, they still have to be 6 feet apart and with a mask on. So I'm not sure how much more information you get. So you have to go with your gut.
Yeah.
It's challenging. It's going to be one of the more challenging parts of this. I definitely think that you could make it part of the audition process that they read together. I think that maybe even an improv game where you go off script and you like kind of let the actors just kind of play a little bit would tell you even more about kind of the work that they've done and what they would bring together as a couple or as whatever kind of relationship they're meant to have on screen.
Yeah, I really love. I think that's a really good idea. Just like giving them opportunity to play, giving them something that's beyond just the script to see if there's some sort of mutual affinity. And I think at least personally, I've found in all these months of now doing so many virtual meetings is that, you know, you really still are able to kind of surface, you know, chemistry still, even if it is disconnected in a way that it wouldn't be in person. But you have to give a lot more energy, perhaps. But that still kind of will translate to some degree too. It's just finding the right way in to get there.
It's a great question, though. I think it's one of the unanswered things that we're still all feeling out.
For sure. Okay. And so, yeah, please, if you have more questions, keep them coming. We will be checking in. I wanted to kind of take it back a little bit to the casting notice part of the whole process. That's kind of where it begins when you're breaking down the characters in a script, putting out the casting call. It sounds like that there are some tools on Backstage that help you to maybe get there, like a worksheet or that sort of a thing that people will use. Are there any best practices that people should be aware of when writing a very clear notice that will attract the right talent?
Backstage, we have a full casting editor team that can help you kind of grammatically and make sure that the intention of the sentence that you're putting out there is what you mean. We can do that, but you guys have to do the hard work of kind of the detective work of writing out all of the details of the character that you're looking to get cast. So as much information as possible about the character and to help the actor figure out how they fit is kind of key. So what essence of the character are you looking for? And why I say essence versus maybe physical, a physical description of the character is because I've always asked myself, and I continue to encourage all the community to ask themselves, like, what assumptions and unconscious biases might I be bringing from my experience when I'm creating my breakdown, right? So what evidence in a script is there to support like an ethnicity decision or a physical ability or a gender identity decision that I've assigned to the role? And if it's not supported by the script, if it doesn't like further the story in some way, opening that up and not limiting yourself to physical ability, gender identity, ethnicity might be an incredibly interesting thing to do for your project. So I'm encouraging that conversation everywhere that I possibly can to be more creative in how we're creating our breakdowns. So, you know, think about it this way. We're all playing detective. The actor wants to know if their type is right, their essence and energy is right for the character that you're looking for. Of course, there's going to be details like maybe age or, and it might be in the script that there's a particular ethnicity, or you're looking for a language, or you're looking for, you know, a gender identity. But if you're not, keep it really script particular. You know, and ultimately casting, that's what we're doing here. We are looking for the right person for the project. So the net can be wide and should be as wide as possible to include as many actors as possible. And I use my knowledge, my skill to get the right people in front of the creative team. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm fully on that same page with you, encouraging an open mind. I love to hear that. And the thing I think, is really interesting about, all creative processes, but especially something like video production, where it's, there's so many different creative minds that go into it. It's such a collaborative process, and it can take so many different forms from beginning to end, where you start and where you end. Can sometimes develop in strange and exciting ways. So I think being open to that, even in the casting portion of it, can lend itself to having very interesting results. So thank you for that. And another question that we saw that came in, let me see, where is it? This was a little bit more about the lighting. Someone concerned about their lighting of doing a remote casting, I believe. One, is there any look that casting directors are looking for, or how can we help our talent to look the best on screen if they maybe are not as savvy?
Yeah. Hi, Lani. Great question. So I think that applying a rule that I said briefly earlier, do the best with what you've got right now, right? So set yourself up to succeed. There is a lot of free content on Backstage about self-tapes and auditions from home and how to set up your room. And I'm breaking a few of them. I have this light in the side and, a shadow over here. Like I'm breaking some of them. Please don't,
Well, I'm not here to hire you, so it's fine.
So there are certain ways to set yourself up and set your room up in a particular way. You can always check in with the casting director and say, hi, again, building on an idea that we said earlier, the scene is in a kitchen. Can I set it in my kitchen, or would you prefer that I do it on a blank wall? Like, you can just check in and have that dialogue so that you really feel confident that you're doing the best work that you can. And then of course, it's talent before look, but particularly when it comes to commercial projects or a little bit about TV and film, you want to do the heavy lifting for the creative team. Producers, directors, anyone that's a creator on this side of the conversation, take this, wink, 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 nudge, nudge. But I think with actors, don't assume that they're as smart as you, right? Like, that you can look a particular way, or, that you're more glamorous with this makeup on and that fits the exact breakdown. Just take the extra 10 minutes to present yourself the way that you think puts the best foot forward. Because we see a lot of tapes, we see a lot of talent, and you want to stand out because you fit the role perfectly. And so do that extra little, do that lifting for us. Because sometimes we just want things to be as easy as possible on the creator end, that it just feels like you are ready to go to set. And in reality, we know that, we have makeup, we have lighting, we have all that stuff. If you're the right person, we'll book you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see here. Thank you for that question, Lani.
We also, Lani, just another little point. We had a makeup tutorial on Backstage. We started this thing called the Slate during COVID for our acting community, and we've had everyone from how to some meditation, fitness classes, of course casting directors and producers and directors about how to get your work on there. It's a really great resource, totally free. And one of them, which is now on YouTube, is a makeup tutorial. And I don't know if that is of any interest for you about getting ready for auditions, but this woman was like teaching people how to do it in like 5 minutes, which I thought was so awesome. If you want to check out the Backstage YouTube.
Yeah, and there's just a ton of, again, like you said, there's a ton of really great content you guys are putting out around remote casting. And so definitely look that up. And even on Tongal, we did this really cool guide, basically, of because we were doing more and more UGC content. It's like a quick kind of thing we can point to. It's like, here's how to like shoot a video if you're like not used to doing it. Just like some basic lighting kind of information, some how to angle stuff and all that. It's like very simple things, but like even those simple things can really make a difference if you're just kind of starting out and you're like, I don't know where to begin.
Yeah. So, yeah. And play around, set up your laptop, set up your iPhone or your Android, whatever you're kind of taping with, and tape it and upload it to somewhere that only you see, and, just compare them and see what the sound quality is like, and maybe do it in a different room. Like, you kind of have an opportunity right now to play around with the space that you have. And again, just try to do the best with what you've got, the resources you have in the space.
Well said. Okay, cool. So, and then I think we are kind of maybe getting kind of to the end of our program. So again, if anyone has an itching question on the tip of their fingertips they want to type in, now is the time to do that. But before we wrap things, are there any positive takeaways that you've been seeing during this time on the Backstage platform? Things that have come out of this that are, happy accidents or happy silver linings in all of the changes, the massive changes that we're all really dealing with together?
Yeah. Thanks for putting it that way. This is obviously a terrible time. It's been incredibly difficult, but I'm like you. I'm trying to see the best of what we can in this difficult time, make the lemonade out of the lemons, if you will, right? So thinking about that in particular, we talked about user-generated content, kind of giving back the power to the actors to have these self-tape audition opportunities and things like that. I think that although there's some mastery of the skill, we've just been talking about trying to get it right, but ultimately self-tapes actually give a lot of power back to the actor, because you can tape it as many times as it takes to get right. So, take that opportunity to send in your best take. You don't have to just walk into an audition room, do the audition. Sometimes it goes great, sometimes it doesn't, and you come back out, So I think that for the actor, there's that opportunity. For actors as well, the amount of free things that have happened during this time, thank goodness, it's all free resources. The Slate being one of them. Tongal, you guys have amazing things happening on your site for production and all types of your blog in particular is really great. There is access to casting directors, producers, directors, writers. People want to share what they have at this time, which I really feel has been one of the best things for the acting community. And then for the filmmaking community, especially the indie budget, small, kind of smaller gigs, I think this is going to really shake up conventional film releases and distribution in particular. The PVOD, am I saying that right? Premium Video On Demand? Good. It's proved really popular. Of course, I don't want the traditional cinema to go away. I want to, go to the movie house. I love that experience. But streaming options are so much more accessible to indie filmmakers, and there's growth and demand for more streaming content than ever. And the VOD model is really great for filmmakers, indie filmmakers in particular. When you have a smaller project, you're just trying to get people to eyeballs on your project. It's certainly an opportunity. So those are two kind of major pluses or takeaways that I think are certainly really interesting at this time. Yeah,
absolutely.
Those are my main ones.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll think like, oh gosh, if this had happened even like 10 years ago, we would be in a completely different situation. We wouldn't have good webcams. Like, it would have been a lot harder to really do anything. So it's, that is also kind of a silver lining, that at least our technology is somewhat advanced to be able to still get anything done.
Well, and remote auditions are budget friendly. They're fast. They're efficient. I think that remote auditions will be here to stay for quite some time. They're also germ friendly. So, but beyond that, it's like, oh, this is a much more effective way of working. I mean, we're in New York, you're in LA.
Mm-hmm.
LA, you sit in a car park of your the highway for half of your day, and you're kind of going from audition to audition. Maybe you don't have to do that anymore. Maybe that's not the way you have to work. Maybe you can have a lot of audition opportunities at home.
Absolutely. I think that actually is a very good point too. I have good girlfriends that live on one side of town, and when they have to go all the way across town, they're like, well, there goes my whole day.
Right. Yeah, 100%. So maybe we can be more effective with our time too.
Right. And it looks like we have one last question from Natalia. Are there any tips for judging an actor's physicality via virtual audition? Would you mostly, I guess I didn't even really think about that, but I guess when I think about doing a remote audition, I'm thinking of like, we're sitting here chatting, but you could get up and move around or?
Yeah, it's funny. Of course, it makes sense in this format for us to sit, but often when actors make the choice to sit, it's not very informative or helpful to their scene and the energy that they need to do. So I'm always telling actors, why are you sitting down? Get up, move, within the confines of your camera, because it's more informative. Like, when do you really tell the most important thing about your life sitting right into a webcam, right? So you've got to try to bring back some of the reality there. Natalia, I think that a way of figuring out physicality, I mean, that's going to be do the initial read or the self-tape to figure out kind of if this actor has the right ideas, and then set up or ask them to do within that audition or for their second audition, a wider lens. So that you get, just be really particular with them. Actors are so smart and savvy. You don't want a medium shot. You don't want a tight shot. You want that second take to be something where you can figure out their physicality. Of course, just, legal disclaimer. You can't, ask anyone to do anything, or you have to be very cautious about asking people to record things that might, be compromising or anything like that. So, you have to book someone before you ask them to be nude or something like that. But you can get a real idea of a physicality that way. So get that first tape where you need to see the works. Like, I really would recommend you even get 2 takes as your audition. You ask for something that is a tight or a medium shot so that you get to really see the work the actor's doing, and then ask that second take to be something where you see a wide lens of what the work would be if you were in the space with them.
Great. That was very helpful. Thank you, Natalia, for asking that great question. As we begin to wrap up here, if you find that you have any other questions for Christine, she is readily available at the email address on screen, christine.mt@backstage.com. So please feel free to reach out to her. She so graciously offered to help you all on your journeys as you cast in the brave new world of remote casting. And from all of us here at Tongal, I really want to say a big thank you to you, Christine, for being here today, for representing Backstage and telling our creators more about it. Remember, if you are a Tongal community member, that you can cast for free any project, not even just Tongal projects, on the Backstage website platform. So head to our community resources page to learn more about that and other offers from our community partners. And for everyone really that tuned in and asked so many great questions today. We had a lot of really good questions, a lot of good, back and forth there. So I really want to shout you all out for doing that and joining us. Even if you didn't have a question, you just had a good time, give us a thumbs up and let us know. And remember to keep an eye out for more community live streams coming soon. And leave us a comment if you have an idea for what we should talk about in a future live stream, and we might do that. So, all right, Christine, we did it.
Thank you, guys. It was so nice to connect with you today. I really enjoyed having a chat.
Amazing. All right. Well, we will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.